Hey everyone, welcome back to episode number 2 of Ambitious X-Driven. This week I'm joined with Elvis Nava, who's the co-founder of Mimic Robotics. So Mimic Robotics is a startup in Zurich, and they're working on dexterous hands and end-to-end neural network training for robotic manipulation. And so it's very cool stuff, and I get to speak with Elvis, who we talk a bit about video editing. Back when he was in high school, he was posting short videos that are really, really well edited, and then doing computer science in Milan, and then coming to ETH for a data science and masters, and then how he ended up doing a PhD ETH AI Center fellowship and getting into robotics. And yeah, I think it's a very interesting talk. It's a bit long, but yeah, enjoy. Okay, yeah, it's recording now.
All right, cool, nice.
Okay, yeah. So first question is tell me about a time you showed a lot of courage.
Oh, okay, that's already very, very fast.
No, that's just a joke, generic interview question, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna start already with the HR project, the top 5 moments I had the most courage or initiative.
Yeah, you didn't prepare for the interview. This is a serious interview.
Exactly.
Maybe we can start from what you're doing back in high school and stuff. I saw your YouTube. I saw your YouTube channel, Scienziato Caso. The editing is insane. Actually, I've seen Rocket Jump, and you have on par video graphics.
Actually, yeah, Rocket Jump was my inspiration at the time. So yeah, I mean, okay, let's say in high school, I mean, I did high school in Bergamo. I'm kind of I'm from a town near Bergamo, North Italy,
Yeah.
and I was in high school. This is classic scientific high school, and yeah, I basically had this random fixation on wanted to do visual effect movies or something, because I was doing home movies since when I was a kid, so I just really wanted to do high budget visual effect movies. I discovered After Effects because of this. At the time it was Freddy Wong, Freddy W was the name of the channel.
Yeah.
Then now it's Rocket Jump, but yeah, basically I really was obsessed with these Freddy Wong channels, and then I just basically wanted to do the same thing. So there was a period between third year and fourth year of high school, maybe I was 17, 8, maybe 16, 17, exactly.
Yeah.
That I spent all my time doing these videos, and I was the only one pushing this forward. All my friends, they didn't give a shit, they didn't do anything. They just showed up. They did their horrible acting, and then I just recorded everything, and then I did all the visual effects and everything. So there is the last one that I did at some point was called it was about Crysis, this video game, this first person shooter thing, and that one was a 10-minute video. It took at the time it seemed to be an absurd amount of time. It must have taken 3 months to make, which for me was a lot of time. Almost full time making this one video. So yeah, definitely, at some point I realized, okay, this is a bit too much work and I now have other fixations, so I will stop. But, yeah, definitely, it was very fun. I don't know if it would have been a great career to keep doing that, but
I mean, I think it was the graphics, the editing was actually insane though.
Yeah, I think especially if you consider this was done in 2012, 2013,
yeah,
the software was not that good. There was for example, if you had bullet holes on the walls or something like this,
yeah,
you had to install plugins for After Effects with motion tracking, and then you had to do pick a spot on the wall, select the width of the motion tracking thing for the algorithm to follow, and
Yeah.
then it would do it, and it would mess up half of the keyframes, and then you have to change it manually to make it fit. I think now you probably have some deep learning based thing in Adobe that will just do it for you.
Yeah.
It was much harder, much harder.
So I guess manually you had to put the keyframes for each bullet hole, or at some point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these. Yeah.
You should show Freddie Wong. I think with Judo and stuff, there's a possibility you could be this is what I did back in high school.
See, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I also saw you did lots of gaming as well, classic CS, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's also. I mean, if you go on my Steam account, I have like absurd amount. Okay, like every person's definition of an absurd amount of hours in a video game is relative.
Yeah.
I think for me it was. I mean, an absurd amount of hours is like 800 hours on CS. I know people that did like thousands, so that's like
I think
a different thing.
I know a guy who has like 3K hours in League, or like even more probably.
Exactly. So it's much more exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. So I like. I think I always was like playing video games a lot. Like I actually think a bit too much. Like I think video games are good when you're like in high school or something,
Yeah.
because you don't really have a lot of like exciting things going on, and then you get to absolutely like optimize the shit out of them. Like I don't know, like do Factorio, like super optimized factory or something. So you actually have an objective and you can actually do something about it,
Yeah.
while you don't have any money and you are living with your parents. So that's something. I think definitely it took me a long time to detach myself from it when I was playing a lot, even like in my masters, and that was definitely way too much. Like like I shouldn't have happened whatsoever. I think it's like it's a good thing, but like it can eventually you need to actually do stuff. Like I think it's a good balance of like playing games and you need to actually like make something, you know, like that's the fun part about life that you can ignore if you play too much game. Like Counter-Strike specifically is not very creative. You're kind of doing the same stuff over and over and getting good at it.
Yeah.
And then at some point I decided, I remember there was one day I went to my friend and I'm like, I will never play this game ever again. This is horrible. It just makes me rage. And it's like a super toxic thing. So I would just stop it. And from that day I just stopped.
Okay, well. Like I think in bachelor's I had like 800 hours of CS. Like every day, we played like 4 or 5 hours a day with my friends. It was like I could have built a startup in the time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or at least I could have made more of the stupid YouTube videos, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like I think it's also fun, like spending quality time with friends. But
Yeah.
but yeah. So I guess that's kind of how you got into computer science, or like. How did you decide what you wanted to study?
I think in my case it's interesting because I remember somehow for some reason when I was a kid I already knew that I wanted to do computer science. I don't know exactly how it happened. I already knew when I was like 8 years old I wanted to do computer science, even though like none of my parents like are like did more than like high school or anything. So I think I just like computers. I was playing with computers since I was a kid, and then I just wanted to do computer science. Then at some point in high school, I was reading lots of books about AI and what AI would be, even though at the time there was not even any like deep learning or anything like that. But I was like reading stuff about like, okay, maybe deep learning was just beginning maybe, but like the books I was reading were not even about deep learning. It was just like, I really got into AI. Then I decided I wanted to do AI, but then basically that came very natural that like after like I would just go into computer science, but I'd be interested in AI. So then I did like computer science bachelor's, and then after that I did like data science in ETH.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Cool. What is it like studying in Milan? Actually, like, I guess I've never been to the university yet.
I think like so. I can only partially answer that question because throughout my bachelor's I was commuting the entire time, which I absolutely do not recommend whatsoever. I think you should absolutely not commute 2 hours each way when you go to your bachelor's, because you're gonna miss out on like many other activities that you're going to do outside of studying. But yeah, like I think like it was interesting. Like I think in Milan, like at least I was in Uni of Milan. Like you get to do lots of like theory, you learn everything from scratch about the theory of computation, abstract machines, and like computer like programming languages and so on. You don't really get to do lots of like activities, like for example like startup club and so on. I think in Polytechnic is a bit different because that's more like, I don't know, it's more considered the hub of like Italy in terms of tech, I would say. But yeah, in Uni, it was not like that at all. So I would say like it was cool, it was useful, and it allowed me to go forward. But like there could be so many things that could be better about that. Like, and yeah, like I think it's good, but I think if you want to actually grow as like a person doing computer science and like AI, like you have to basically make it all up by yourself. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think that's like the case for like all the bachelors. Like I was at EPFL as well, and we we had a lot of projects, but like it was mostly like, oh yeah, just like code this function out, and so you don't actually learn how to build a project, right? So
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. I had projects, and sometimes it was not like on very outdated things. Like I remember there was an artificial intelligence course,
yeah,
and the content was like Prolog, which is like from the 80s. So it's like logical programming, like GoFi, like good old fashioned AI. Like, but it's still cool. Like you're basically kind of doing a project in which you're solving some nice little puzzle, and it's like some type of like coding exercise of some sort, right? But it's not really like useful in a way that is like, I don't know. You're not building something real, like you're not like not even remote.
It's building character, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
And how come you found out about ETH, or like you could have applied anywhere, right?
So that was an interesting question. So I think like again, like I was very lucky to actually I think end up in ETH.
Yeah.
Because I kind of at some point I knew that I wanted to do AI, and my bachelor's barely had anything except for like my thesis that I did with a professor, and you couldn't even take any course that was on AI besides this logical stuff in the bachelor's. You had to wait until the master's to do any of that somehow. And but I was studying. I did like some courses on the side and so on, like some of these like EDX thing, like that's like kind of like. It's kind of like Khan Academy type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then I basically had like a list of like schools that I thought were cool. There was like some CDT program in like University of Edinburgh that had like master's and PhD at the same time. And then there was ETH. Yeah. There was ETH data science. And then there was like UCL.
Yeah.
And honestly, like nobody was telling me that you should do this or that. I was talking to people, oh, what do you think about the idea of doing the master's outside of Milan? And they were like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about that. Everybody I was talking to. Okay. Like, they don't even conceptualize that you can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right? So it was like, I think it's very important that you figure this stuff out on your own and you apply to all the stuff and you do lots of applications, because I basically was just randomly stumbling through it. I did an ridiculously low number of applications. I applied to 3 things and I got into 1.
Yeah.
Even ETH, I only applied to data science, should have applied to computer science as well. Like it made no sense whatsoever. Like I think like there is no culture of like, at least where I'm from, there was no culture of like, I don't know, the US style culture. You have to get into Ivy League and you have to do this and that to get in. That doesn't exist. Like you have to make it up yourself, basically. And that's basically my answers to why I decided to go to ETH. Just pretty random. I just was looking for places that give like masters in AI, and I just found out about it, and then I decided to apply. And I think I was applying to some things, and then at some point I was like thinking, oh, should I want to go to Zurich? They speak German. I didn't even like think about it too much. And then a friend of mine told me, come on, just apply. And then I applied. Right? Literally, like there was no plan. So, yeah.
Are you glad you applied then, I guess? Or probably, right? Or...
Yeah, very glad, very glad. I think it was amazing, like very lucky. Honestly, of all the options, it was the best by far in hindsight.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, I think it was much better for me to come to ETH than it would have been to go to any of the other stuff I tried to go to.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, guess sure, maybe you can say, maybe you could try to go to Stanford or something and get some like loan or something.
Yeah.
But like, I wasn't even 1/10 the way of planning for something like that. Like, not even like conceptualizing it at all, right? So, of all the stuff, like basically UK versus anything else, ETH was the best choice by far.
Yeah. I think I had an offer from Edinburgh, but it was during COVID, and like the reason why I didn't take it was like I was like, it's gonna rain every day. So I ended up in Switzerland.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good choice as well. No, but also like US unis is like you need to be like studying, like preparing for your applications at like 5 years old. Like
exactly. No, okay. That's a bit like another side of the spectrum. Like, you know, you need to actually have time to goof around and not think about this bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess US kids, they want to be competitive. They don't do that. They just have to optimize every waking time to go to uni, which I don't think is ideal. But the other option is that you just don't know about anything, and that's very bad.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like I don't know. Like sometimes I'm like, is it good to be like ambitious and just working hard? And I see other people like, oh, they're just like chilling, enjoying life, and like ultimately, I guess.
No, but I think it's not like in that sense, right? So I think you should 100% be ambitious and want to basically get to where you want. I just think that like
Yeah.
if you're like 10 years old, you need time to explore and to goof around, right? And that doesn't mean that you're not gonna be ambitious to like go to the university that you need to go to. Like I think it's more about the fact that if you're not sure what you want to do, you need to have the time to goof around. But the moment you're sure, you just need to go for it and actually have like a plan and have a culture that supports you in a way that is like, okay, then you do X and Y if you want this. Otherwise, like you're just stumbling, you have no idea what's going on, basically.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I also think like at some point it's like also the people who you're surrounded with also kind of makes you like you get like kind of groupthink and like it makes you do stuff that everyone else is doing. But I still don't understand how. I guess Freddie Wong, you were watching this and that got you into like videos and yeah, I don't know. I think one question I had, like, since you went through the masters, is like, what's like one of like the good memories you have, or like things you would say that people should focus on if they're not just studying, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I loved going. So I didn't do too many, and that's like, in my opinion, a regret.
Yeah.
I should have done more. But when I did go, I love going to the hackathons.
Oh, really?
In the masters.
Yeah.
There was like there was this Vis hackathon. There was some polyhack.
Yeah.
And there was also something else at some point. So we were winning these hackathons very often. It was very fun. And I think this is like very good because when you're young enough that your body allows this to do these all-nighters, you should do them.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was one of the best things. Like actually just doing these random apps in some hackathon, you actually learn how to do like some project that is not just like a school project. Because even in the ETH masters, all the core stuff is still focused on like more like school type projects at the end of the day. Even though sometimes they, I don't know, deep learning course, they're like, oh, if you're really good, you should become a paper.
Yeah.
But like, it never has this energy of like, you want to make something, you have to give it by like the next 3 days, right? And then you kind of have this camaraderie and building a team, right? That's still, it depends on the master. Like I know lots of engineering people, like mechanical, electrical, they do stuff like, I don't know, the Swiss loop.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of comes with their masters. I think in more computer science, like even data science, if you don't make this by yourself, the course will not make you do that.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you do this.
No, I totally agree. Like, I think if someone just followed the courses fully for a bachelor's semesters, at the end, I don't think they would be able to code. Like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and yeah, I think you also mentioned like sleeping on the tables or something, right? That like you can only do that at like a hackathon, right?
yes, exactly. Like I don't know, chugging 5 of like the Migros, the energy day thing, and sleeping on the table, like in the CAB, like they have this like a study, like a chemistry table thing.
Oh yeah.
We were that. You're not gonna be able to do it. Like even like in your late 20s is quite hard. So when you're at the masters is the right time, I think.
Yeah, I think even now it's already too late for me to do all-nighters. Like it's too, like you can just feel it's getting worse and worse.
Yeah, exactly.
I had some questions as well. That you did an internship at Oracle, and like you did the masters as well. So I'd be curious to know like how did you decide to do a PhD? Like, what was like the experience at Oracle first, maybe?
Yeah, no, exactly. So I mean, I think that was a bit complicated because like essentially I was trying to apply to lots of things, then COVID happened, and I got like the very best spots that I wanted to go to. It ended up all being fucked up because of COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, somehow, like, I don't know, like, it didn't end up working. Like, I don't know, I was, like, applying to some places like Google, and I went, like, until the very last part of the interview.
Yeah.
And then like basically they had some problems with the teams or something going on. But like I think so essentially I just wanted to get an internship done before doing the PhD because I wanted to see like some like just get some experience in some more like corporate place, not just because like I want to work in corporate, just because I think like I've never done anything that remotely resembles like a real like grown-up job in a way. So I just wanted to try it in production. And so basically I did that. I mean, that was cool. Like I would never ever work in corporate. That was maybe like the outcome of that. But
why do you say that? Like, was it just boring or?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want to shit on it. Like, it's also not cool. I think there was this culture that you did. I mean, okay. It was COVID, right?
Yeah.
So everything was remote. But I think that's the thing, right? Like you don't really see anyone. And as a very junior person, the remote thing doesn't work.
Yeah.
You need somebody to talk to for any random stuff coming up. And if you have to do a call for each of these things, it's very awkward.
Yeah.
And it's also a mental barrier that you may, I don't know, like now maybe I would like, oh, I would just call. Now I would just call. At the time, I wouldn't. Like, I would just like try to figure it out and try not to, I don't know, bother other people or something.
Yeah.
So for juniors, it doesn't work to do remote. And I think in some of these corporates, like the remote thing is very prevalent even today. I've heard apparently that it still goes on a lot. And remote is just good if you're senior and then you don't care. But if you're junior, you actually need to learn. Then you're completely fucked. So I felt like I could have learned much more, but then because of COVID, everything was fully remote and I didn't learn as much as I thought I could.
I think doing it during COVID is like the worst. It kind of just like prison. Someone tells you to do work, you don't see them for that whole day.
Exactly. And but yeah, basically that. And then in terms of wanting to do PhD, so I do think like I'm maybe a bit of an unusual case. So I was always like, as I was like basically like sometimes I maybe give you like some weird answers for your questions. Like I was ambitious in some regards. Like I want to do X, I want to do videos, then I do them. Like nobody around the high school wants to do them. I still do them. I want to do computer science, I will do it. I want to go abroad, then I will do it even though my plan is complete bullshit because nobody tells me exactly how to do it properly, right? But I never really, I don't know, for example, had like too much of the startup push that I just would want to do the startup just because I want to do a startup. I basically I wanted to do research in AI and I wanted to do like work on like AGI or whatever, right? Like I just wanted to work on AGI. And then at the time, the thing was like, okay, then I will do a PhD. I will try to do as much as I can in the PhD. And I will try to work at somebody that actually does this seriously, like in Google or something where they have the resources to make it work. It was kind of my plan that I wanted to do something like this. And so I always wanted to do the PhD. Even like when I was in my bachelor's, I thought I wanted to do the PhD. Right. So that was kind of normal. Like I never made the choice to go in a PhD because of Oracle or something. Like Oracle was more in the way because I wanted to like go to some corporate and get some experience there, basically. Right. So that was basically it. But I think, essentially, I started a PhD because it was basically right on time that I fit it all in with the internship and I was done with the master's. But it was like the most natural progression. Like I think things got more weirder for me during the PhD, basically towards the end because of all the startup stuff that derailed the whole thing. But up to the PhD, I think it was all pretty much on track with what I wanted to do from the beginning, essentially.
Could you explain actually what Mimic does? Like also for like people listening.
Okay. I think so. Okay. So essentially, Mimic, we think that with the current advances in like kind of generative models for robotics specifically, you can have like general purpose robots that can solve various degrees of manual labor that currently props up basically the world economy, right? And manual labor is very like, it's usually not a dream job. People don't really necessarily want to do most manual labor. And it's and also there's going to be problems in like advanced economies with like labor shortage and I don't know, aging demographic. Like if you want to maintain the standard of living of today and not only maintain but increase it and have abundance, you will need to somehow automate generalizable manual labor. So it's essentially like you don't need a volume of like 1 billion items being produced before you want to automate something. Otherwise, you will always be dependent on some type of very shitty job that somebody has to do.
Yeah.
right? And then I guess rich countries can get away with it right now by exporting it to other countries, right? But like ultimately, if the entire world gets rich, nobody will want to do this.
Yeah.
So essentially, so that's the overall like problem, right? But like we think that now, because of the advances in generative models, you can actually solve this with some kind of simple algorithms, but with precise implementation and like scaling up of data and like having the right hardware and scaling up data.
Yeah.
So we basically combine the expertise of like the fact that we know how to build the dexterous humanoid hands,
Yeah.
and we know how to train the models with imitation learning at the beginning. Then we're also going to explore like other approaches, but like at the beginning, like large scale imitation learning
Yeah.
based on like data. That can be data from teleoperation, and we're also looking into other data sources like human data, basically, like of how humans perform the various tasks.
Yeah.
And the idea is that just with this imitation learning, you can already approximate to high success rate enough tasks that you can have a successful startup out of it.
Yeah.
Basically. So you take the hand that is designed to mimic humans,
Okay.
and you can make it mimic the data that you can get out of these humans.
Yeah.
And then we want to kind of, for now, like make it kind of very easy to deploy, and that doesn't really require the entire humanoid like stack, because that's not really commoditized enough, and it introduces lots of problems like balancing and so on.
Yeah.
So for now, the goal for now is to kind of make the hands kind of plug and play into various existing industrial and other types of robot platforms, like cobot platforms.
Yeah.
So you can buy, even on Digitech or like whatever, you can buy like robot arms right now.
Yeah.
And the idea is that as long as you have cameras, robot arm, and you put the hand, then you can kind of automate at the beginning simple stationary tasks, then like even some type of like simple mobile with wheels and so on.
Yeah.
But you could only do it now that the models are like versatile enough, basically,
Yeah.
right? And then the reason why it's specifically a human hand is because we think there is a very good argument there in terms of like scaling laws and like essentially data that you can get from humans.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you will have to get teleoperation data of like existing robot deployments and scale it up more and more.
Yeah.
But with a huge intermediate phase in which you will have massive amounts of teleoperators that have to do these jobs
Yeah.
to get like the right data that you need. So we think that you should try to use existing data as much as possible, and existing data has to come from people.
Yeah.
And for language and video, this thing exists already. Like that's how LLMs can even exist in the first place, right? Or like vision models.
Yeah.
Because the internet, people created this before these technologies even existed. For robots, that's not the case, right? But for example, human video already implicitly has lots of information about like how humans actually do stuff in the real world. What kind of movements the humans need to do
Yeah.
to solve the task. And that's basically why we think that the hands are useful, because then the embodiment is very similar to what the human has.
Yeah.
And we argue that in the long term, human data is going to be crucial to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the short term, the type of algorithms that we do are also a bit agnostic to the actual robot embodiment. Like you could do it on 2-finger gripper robots like other companies do.
Yeah.
But we also think the hand looks much cooler and also like much more versatile.
Yeah.
So, and since we know how to build it, it's a good fit essentially. Yeah.
And you know, also for all like the adverts, it looks cooler if it's like a robot hand.
Yeah.
So how did like the startup stuff happen? Like I think we met at Talent Cake. I don't know if that was the start or even earlier.
Yeah. I think so. I think at some point something changed because, again, like I think learning more about what works, for example, in like AI and so on, right? So you essentially, when I started, I was just wanted to learn, and then the best way to learn, okay, I'll do a PhD, I will do research. I think like
Yeah.
understanding how things work, and especially like I don't know, I think I was pretty early on in like the whole LLM stuff, even though I didn't manage to like monetize that early on. But like I was following the right people, I think, like all these like scaling laws and so on, like even back then.
Yeah.
I kind of got the impression that like some of this academic stuff that I was doing, for example, like my master thesis, I liked it, but it was not on deep learning. It was on more theoretical, like bounds on regret stuff.
Yeah.
Like Bayesian optimization bounds on regret.
Yeah.
I decided, okay, this is not strategically going to go to AGI or any of the sort, right?
Yeah.
Then I would just rather go and work on deep learning, right? That was like something that I did. Like I just wanted to get a PhD on deep learning, get anything to do with deep learning. So then I basically got into AI Center and ended up working also on robotics.
Yeah.
But not because I had like a plan with respect to robotics. I just wanted to do deep learning, right?
Yeah.
And move away from the stuff I did my master's, at least in the thesis.
Yeah.
And then like basically that's the same wave with the startup, right? Then I was doing the PhD and I was doing a bunch of papers.
Yeah.
And I think they were cool, they were interesting, but at the same time, everything started happening around like ChatGPT and all of these like LLMs and like turning LLMs into agents and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I realized that suddenly doing all of these things was like easy in a way that you could actually like try to drive it if you actually want to be at the forefront of this.
Yeah.
And even in terms of research, even in the terms of like actually building the type of transformative AI that will actually change the world and impact the world.
Yeah.
Doing papers and doing research is actually no longer like the best thing necessarily. It's very easy if you have the right ideas to like raise venture capital money and actually have a team that gives you the right resources to actually solve the problems that you want to solve.
Yeah.
So that's when I think something changed, because like making these models work became so easy that I thought it actually made sense to like basically raise venture capital money to actually solve this problem.
Yeah.
And then I suddenly thought also that this type of like training end-to-end robot models for robotics actually works. And then I just need to find the resources for it. And I don't want to wait until I get hired by somebody to do it. I can just do it myself. That's basically when
That's how like
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm like I don't know. Maybe the whole summarizer at the end doesn't summarize my points properly. But that's basically.
How did you meet your co-founders, friend? Like, I think that's a very difficult thing to do. That's like the step one, even if you have like a strong idea.
That's extremely hard.
Yeah.
I think I was quite lucky because I was extremely lucky the whole timing of everything, because so Stefan Weyrich and Stefan Gravert, they were kind of in the orbit of the soft robotics lab, so which is one of my two labs in the PhD.
Yeah.
And basically, they were already kind of in the whole startup scene somehow.
Yeah.
I wanted to do startups, and they were really strong. And especially Stefan Weyrich at the beginning, he had like the whole idea for the startup, but it was at the beginning more focused on the hands and hardware.
Yeah.
And I also had my own ideas that you like about essentially how to do like end-to-end models for manipulation.
Yeah.
And then we kind of met exactly the right time to make it work. And then we basically raised the pre-seed. Like I think we got commitment even quite very early on. Then we still had to like kind of make it work with the university and the licensing and everything, and that took a while. But I think it was just exactly meeting these guys that were very strong at the exact right time, and they were already technical and doing stuff that was compatible. So that was very lucky, I would say.
And like,
yeah.
Did you work with them before? Or kind of just like, I guess in SRL you already worked together.
Yeah, I somewhat worked. I think with Gravert I was tangentially working with before at some point in SRL.
Yeah.
With Stefan Weyrich, not really, but we were talking for a while, like for several months.
Yeah.
And then when we started properly working together, it was already on the concept of the startup, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
And so, did all of you put your PhDs on pause, or like it was? How did it happen?
So I'm the one that is doing like technically a PhD, because they were doing like at the beginning like research assistantship and so. I am basically I kind of like took, let's say, an internship pause style of thing, and yeah, like I actually need to finish. Like I hopefully I will finish very soon this year. So that's basically But yeah, I think like I had to pause it just because like the commitments are too much otherwise.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, I think that like my desired project for a PhD was always this kind of like end-to-end robot models.
Yeah.
And the way, for example, originally popularized by the robotic transformer, when I looked at it at the beginning, that was kind of gave me the beginning of the ideas, right?
Yeah.
And I think to actually achieve the type of papers that I wanted to do, so much infrastructure is needed, like it was completely over-scoped, over-ambitious.
Yeah.
That the only way I could have realistically done it anyways was through a startup. So I don't think I'm doing any disservice to the PhD by putting it on pause, because the type of stuff that I wanted to write to make it look good, to make it good, actually required the essentially the resources of the startup, right?
Okay.
So that's because exactly like I care about actually solving the problem and actually like getting like advancing like end-to-end robot models.
Yeah.
And the startup happens like to like be at exactly the right time that you can actually commercialize this and you can actually like make like a good story out of it that actually works and fits into the whole trend of like basically generative AI for robotics.
Yeah.
But even if you look at purely from the scientific perspective, wanted to solve like the problem, wanted like purely from the scientific perspective, I wanted to solve the problem and wanted to like get like some paper out. That was still the best way, in my opinion, because like it was just otherwise it was just too hard to do anything useful. And in my opinion, that ties back to the thing that if you actually want to work on these problems,
Yeah.
just doing a PhD first authorship individual is not enough. Yeah.
So, like in a lab environment, you don't have like the right tools, or like what's like the main limitation?
Yeah, I mean, like you can be very well funded, you can be everything, but you don't have, for example, I don't know, if you're making the dexterous hand hardware, right? You need to like have like a team that is just dedicated to that. They cannot be thinking about making their own individual first author papers on AI at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Then if you are doing data collection, you need like you need to set up a data flywheel of like managing data collectors and people and students that come and do data collection. You cannot just again do this just on your own as a PhD student in your free time. I mean, people have done it, but it's not scalable. Like you will do all-nighters for like 1 month and then get a paper out and then it falls apart.
Yeah.
Right. Like like all of this stuff, this infrastructure behind, you can only get it if you have a team that is dedicated to your objective.
Yeah.
As one PhD is very hard to do anything beyond the simplest proof of concept, I think.
Yeah.
Because also robotics is very hard. Like it's really complicated. Everything can break. There is like a fractal amount of like problems that can arise if you are doing stuff at the frontier. And basically, if you like actually, exactly. Doing it in the startup is much easier. That's basically what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like one question I had was also, if you were doing like a deep tech startup, like I'd assume that a lot of the people also bring in like their own ideas. Oh, I'd want to like build this, or I'd want to build that, or something, right? So how do you align these people? Like, okay, this is the mission. Like, this is what we're going to do.
That's a good question. I think this is extremely important. This is an extremely important topic because essentially. Exactly. So you don't want to run the startup like you run a research lab necessarily. Yeah. Because the research lab again has like PhDs that have their own agenda and they need their first author paper. Yeah. And they can do some random stuff that's never gonna scale as long as it's somewhat novel, right? Yeah. So I think essentially like the only way this works if there is like you need to have a common vision, and if you don't share the common vision, you're not in the startup. Like that's the only way. The startup needs to work on one thing. You need to make it really well, right? It can be research flavored, like what I'm saying, like I want to solve the problem, then I'm doing the startup is actually the best way of solving the problem. Yeah. So it's still not like, it's not just like I just want to do this one logistic customer or something, right? It can be very scientific, it can be very research flavored. Yeah. But you need to have a thesis of how you're going to solve your problem, and you have to be focused and you have to get it done. And if somebody comes and says, oh, let's try this random RL method that doesn't have anything to do, let's try this other thing, let's try this and that, like, you cannot do that, right? So basically, just make sure that from the beginning you're aligned on this, right? Yeah. And then you build your team based on that. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Okay, that's interesting to know. Like,
otherwise, it's more like research institute. You're making some papers and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, also Mimic was... I mean, I think the name is super cool. Also, the branding, like probably top, like one of the top brandings in like all of the Swiss startups, I'd say.
Thank you.
How did it come about the concept of Mimic?
So originally we were called Five Robotics, AIVE. Yeah. And that was Stefan's idea. Yeah. I think it was a cool name. It had one problem, is that you either were writing it down wrong or pronouncing it wrong. Either one was wrong or the other, like depending on the person. Yeah. Because if you write it correctly, like FAIVE, because AI in the middle, right? Yeah. Then you would basically pronounce it fave instead of five. Yeah. And then vice versa, if you're saying five correctly, then you just write down the number five. But then basically, I think that was just basically the problem that the wording was the word itself was a bit problematic. Yeah. And essentially it's not a super exciting story after that. We were about to incorporate and we just wanted to change it right before the official stuff was done. Yeah. And so we just had like a bunch of workshops. They never really went anywhere. Then at some point, they like, I don't know exactly who of the other two guys said, okay, Mimic is also cool because like you are doing like you're doing imitation learning, right? Like your hand mimics humans. And I was originally against this because I think it reminded me of like the Mimic, like this like Dungeons and Dragons style mob that like she's like is like a war chest that has like teeth in it and eats you.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But then I was like, at the same time, nobody cares about it. Nobody knows that. So they just go with it. Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think many people know Dungeons and
Exactly.
Dragons. Okay.
Exactly. So then I was like, okay, I was against it, but then I think it was a pretty good choice.
Oh, I think it's like the coolest name as well. Like Mimic just sounds so like futuristic.
It's also very easy to remember, like mnemonic as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Like, how do you feel about all these other? I mean, like everyone's building a robotics company nowadays. Does it like affect the team at all? Like, oh, I don't know, Figure's doing this, Tesla's doing that, or
actually, like I think that's true. Like if you look at like SF, there is like I don't know 30 startups doing all the same stuff or something. Like I think obviously like right like if these guys raise like lots of money, like it's like they're competitors, they're gonna advance, they're gonna have lots of data collection capabilities that we don't have right now. But I think overall it's good because like the more people actually realize that these robots are like exist and like are realistic and so on.
Yeah.
The more it's actually easy to get customers. Like we've seen this, like when doing like these customers for like pilot projects, that now this year is actually much easier to do the conversation than last year, for example, even.
Yeah.
Or more, I meant more like this year as in like a 12-month period. Like second half of 24 and first half of 25 was much easier than before.
Yeah.
Just because all these other large, big humanoids are like raising money and then people see that this technology actually exists.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes it easier for everyone to actually sell this technology. I think on the competition side, anyways, like a robot market is not like that you just have an API that you connect to and you're going to lose your customer from one day to the next, right?
Yeah.
Like there is lots of stuff regarding deployment and knowing how to deploy, owning the kind of end platform. Yeah. And we are not really too much worried about competition at this point for this because there's so much, the market is so big anyways, like we don't care. And also there is barely anyone in Europe doing this at all. So even if you want to own this part of the market as well, right? Like it's very easy to be somewhat the first doing this type of stuff here. So I don't think, I think it's exciting. Obviously sometimes when there is like some video releases, like I could have been the first to do it, but like I don't think it's like I think it's actually cool that there's so much attention. So
yeah, I mean it's better to do this when everyone's interested. Like now we're like one of the hot companies, right? Versus like if robotics isn't a thing. Yeah, actually, why don't you post more video? Like, there was someone doing like this like tally-up laundry folding machine robot, and I think like went like 1 million, 2 million views on Twitter, right? So why don't you post more?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we need to post. So I think up to now we were a bit stealthy on the actual robot.
Yeah,
and I think basically, I think there is a bit of like this cultural skittishness or like, I want it to look really good. I have to have the best video. Otherwise, like, they're gonna shit on it or they're gonna say, is it teleoperated? It's like something in the comments. Like, I don't know. Like, we definitely should have done it more. I had some pretty cool internal videos that then like, we were like, we need to make it a bit better. So you should definitely expect something very soon. I'm gonna say this, like, definitely expect something very soon. And, I think it's obviously also like maybe I don't want to like overestimate the importance of these videos. Like they are cool, they are not like the end be all. Like we had like private videos that we were showing to like people that are interested like as like investors or customers and so on, right? Yeah. I think like I do think we should have posted them to social media as well, and we're gonna do that.
I think but it depends on what phase you are, right? But I think in my opinion, like I see all these Figure videos, and it's this sort of marketing is ready for hiring talent, right? Like that's
also true. Yeah. That's also true. Yeah, that is absolutely true. So now we are at least gonna do also some nice events that might also help with that. So that's nice.
Which events? Which events are we? I don't know about that.
No.
But at the same time, I think like in Zurich, there's like almost no competition for the robotics students, or like there's like anybotics or other companies. But I think it's not as hard as like SF. Like if you post this on Twitter, you'd be attracting like SF people more likely.
Yeah, yeah. I do think. I do think it's true. Like, if you're just looking at this type of manipulation, end-to-end model manipulation, I don't think there's that many other people doing it in Zurich. Like obviously Zurich is strong for robotics, but you always had historically other stuff like walking, locomotion, and drones and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm very bullish on talent in general, though. Like, just one person.
Yeah, talent.
Exactly. Like HRG fields.
Yeah, talent is so good, and we still are kind of a bit underestimated, I think, compared to like other places. I would say, like because the talent is so good.
But it's just I don't know, like
yeah.
One other question I had was how come you guys raised like Swiss funding? Why did you build in Zurich as well? Why not like go to the US or other routes?
I think so. I think obviously in terms of why we raised this or that funding, like I think at the time when we do pre-seed, it was like very good because we are based in Zurich to do it like that. I think like, and then obviously the next round we're gonna see what we're gonna do. But I think the question there is not explicitly about the funding because the pre-seed. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you need to find partners that you're close to and that are good for you. And so I think Founderful is great, and also the other investors that we have on board. I think the real question is exactly why to do it in Zurich, right?
Yeah.
And I think there is a very good argument for the fact that you have very good talent.
Yeah.
And like you basically have all that you need to actually do the stuff that you want to do. Like you have the talent, you have like the ecosystem, whatever the funding that you want, right? And the customers even and so on, right? And you can kind of arbitrage it against like the absurd San Francisco salary, like and so like because you can do much more with so much less. And I think basically the moment that you actually raise way more money, you can get so much further with it also.
Yeah.
And also while being essentially like underestimated compared to San Francisco, so like let's say much cheaper and so on, right? At the same time, you can still kind of get anybody from Europe that you want.
Yeah.
Because if they're EU citizen, they will just come. And they have the permit immediately, right? And you can grab them from any country in Europe. You will be able to pay them much more.
Yeah.
And so you can get the best talent everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And so essentially, like it's very easy to arbitrage with the rest of Europe. You can pay the best people much more, while at the same time you don't have to compete in this bubble of SF in which to get a good person you will have to pay absurd amounts of money. You can pay them like in equity, right? You don't have to pay absurd amounts of cash just to compete with like some other, like basically compete with 20 startups for the same people versus compete with barely anyone for like a talent pool that is basically as good.
Yeah.
While also having the entire talent pool of Europe that you can poach from basically and pay them much more.
Yeah, so it's a pretty strong argument to stay in Zurich then. Yeah, we kind of touched upon it, but I'm guessing most of your customers, at least initial ones, are based in like Switzerland, right?
So currently, I mean, like we are basically working with pilots, and like when we do a project, it's like a pilot, and like I cannot really disclose at this moment. I mean, interestingly enough, the most serious ones are more like big EU, like supermarket or like let's say supermarkets and like automotive manufacturing and so on. So that's what we want to basically. I mean, what we are focusing on currently. Yeah.
And how like open are they to robotics and pilots? I think we mentioned a bit that it's gotten better, but yeah, like with like, oh, a cutting edge robotic startup is coming, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly like I was mentioning, like I think some of these companies are still operating a bit in like a boomer mode of like, oh, not anything. Let's just see, wait until somebody does something like this, then we want in and we want to adopt this tech. It's hard to find like I think in Europe it's harder to find like somebody who's like just wants to do like a more explorative pilot of this kind.
Yeah.
Uh, but it helps when there's like a hype and like I don't know, there's all these humanoid videos out. You actually have some of the decision makers actually see some of these in their like on the newspapers or something. I don't know, like and then they're actually convinced. So it's definitely gotten better. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And like, do you think you down the line you'd want to expand to other sorts of robotics, not just for hand, or maybe this is like I don't know, like confidential or
I mean,
like
like I think ultimately there is a question of whether, like, for example, cross embodiment is like gonna be a useful thing. I know some startups are betting a lot on cross embodiment, like physical intelligence, or like even Google, the Gemini robotics thing always started as like a cross embodiment.
what does cross embodiment mean? Is
Yeah, it means like you want to kind of de-risk the robot itself. You want to de-risk the hardware. And so you don't like control it or something, or you're not sure what's going to be the best like embodiment for your robot. So you just
yeah,
want to get a bunch of data for all these different hardware robots and then just train one model that can drive all of them.
yeah,
I think the way it's been done up to now is a bit like, I would say, ill-posed because there's not really a way for some model to generalize to a new embodiment. Like, you don't have like a specification of the robot, like, kind of a design in the context or something that you can use to generalize. It's more like that you train on some stuff, then when the model kind of uses some cues to detect that I'm in this, using this robot or that robot,
yeah,
or based on the history of like observations or something, then it will just know how to generate actions for that robot. But you don't like generalize to a completely new robot in a model that has been trained on like 10 different robots. You don't generalize on an 11th robot.
yeah. Makes sense.
No, you don't really generalize at least, unless the robot is very, very similar and you get some type of transfer. So that's the question. Like, I think that is like a bit of a question mark. I think for now, what we are doing, I think rather than focus purely on cross embodiment, it's really to focus on like the human form factor, and there at least the embodiment gap between human and robot should be as small as possible. And there you will have lots of human data. That's kind of, I think, our strategic thinking right now. Obviously, it doesn't mean that we don't know how to make models for other robots, right? It's just what we think makes sense for now. Obviously, like everything can happen, right? But like I think we are pretty set currently on like our platform. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things, yeah, going from like a lab to a startup, are there like any of like unforeseen challenges or like what's like the biggest non-technical difficulties you're facing, I guess?
Uh, um, I think. I mean, there are some things that are very specific to what we do, like, for example, the whole data collection topic, or
Yeah,
like, how do you make sure that you have like some tasks being collected and then you have to evaluate them and to run like evals for the robot? Like, evals in happening AI are like basically extremely important. Like, how do you get
yeah,
an eval? How do you make sure it doesn't like just capture a small fraction of what the model can do without considering other parts? And evals are hard for LLMs. They are like absurdly hard for robotics. Like nobody, when you submit a paper to conference, there is no benchmarks that are realistic that make any sense. Like
yeah,
usually, your robot is always going to do better than some other models applied to your robot, because the robot just is in a different setting, different like video, lighting condition, everything, right? Even the robot morphology is usually different. So
yeah,
those are really hard. So just setting it up in a way that you actually do errors within the organization in a way that's somewhat autonomous, uh, and you don't have to just micromanage it is very hard, and I still haven't figured it out completely. So that is something that is very specific to our company, though. Like just in general, like I don't know. I guess lawyers in Switzerland are really expensive. Like, yeah, like incorporating the company takes forever. Like the banks are super slow and all that stuff.
yeah,
You know, like there's a lot of stuff in like actually doing like busy work that is like a bit annoying. Like I don't know, accounting and all these things you have to figure out it's not outsourced properly.
yeah,
Yeah, this is, like common stuff. Also, just in general, thinking is like, I mean, I'd say like doing startup in robotics right now is a good time,
Yeah.
but I think you need some type of investment. Like you need some type of resources to do it. Like there is some capex involved. It's very hard to keep the purely bootstrap like garage way. Like some people have tried it. Some people do maybe a startup that is more like I don't know, very very low cost arms, and
Yeah.
then maybe go off. But like even like having a few people paying that in incorporation, it takes a lot of money, right? It's like
Yeah.
I think at least in robotics currently, I would still suggest that if you are serious about it, you still need to raise capital, right? Obviously, I'm not saying that you need to raise like fear, but like yeah. Okay.
Okay. How did you switch from like computer science to robotics, right? Like usually I feel like the middle. Somehow you managed to get
Yeah. Yeah, I think previously I kind of briefly said maybe a bit disjointed to your earlier questions. Like I kind of mentioned this fact that like in my I was basically doing computer science first and data science, and I was kind of learning generically about ML. And at the time, I kind of had this belief that like if you want to work on AGI and so on, you need to kind of work on like Bayesian stuff. Like Bayesian stuff, for those who don't know, this is like statistics. Like it's like Bayesian statistics. Like you are basically training models to have like posterior distributions over some attribute, lots of theory about it, and then you have like, for example, decision theory, right? Like Bayesian optimization is kind of, for example, you have like an experiment in which you could test A, B, C, or D, and you get some reward, and then you have to decide the right difference between explore and exploit, right? So all of these things, they have like very like lots of very nice theory and so on about it. But then essentially at some point I realized that this was not really the right way that should be gone about actually getting useful AGI and like kind of human like AI. And I basically wanted to pivot to deep learning completely. And I kind of did that later. Like I did courses on deep learning. I did deep learning in my master's, but I never had it as a main focus. I didn't do my master's thesis on it. That I was basically willing to do anything to do a PhD in deep learning. So that meant that, yeah, so obviously not really anything, but like, let's say like I didn't care too much that I found like the perfect topic or something. I just wanted to do deep learning. And obviously also Switzerland was like a good option because like PhD salaries are good. You're going to still live decently while doing it. You're not going to like starve and so on.
Yeah.
And so I just happened very randomly. So I wanted to get the AI Center position. Like there's the AI Center fellowship.
Yeah.
It's like pretty good. It gives you a rate 5 salary, which is great as a PhD. And you can kind of work also on what you want. It kind of gives you a bit of some independence as well because your funding doesn't directly come from a lab. So I wanted to get into that. And then when you do that, it's a bit different from normal ETH applications. So you don't just go to a professor and get the offer from them. You actually have to go through an application process more like US style. And then you have to be matched. And then if you get a good match, you get the offer. So I kind of really want that position just to do deep learning and figure it out later. And then I kind of luckily randomly got assigned to basically assigned. Let's say I had interviews and I got like matched, and I got offers from like basically Benjamin Grader, who's like in the Institute of Neuroinformatics, and Robert Kachman in the Soft Robotics Lab.
Yeah.
And they gave me an offer to kind of work on like meta learning and robotics, right? And I didn't have much knowledge about robotics before, right? So. And I basically took it, and I think it was a great choice. It was kind of like maybe a non-standard choice insofar that maybe other people would have just gone with like the biggest name in like deep learning per se, right? While I kind of took the gamble. And I think it ended up being a very lucky thing because essentially it allowed me to go into robotics a bit from the outside, which I think is very useful now that there is all these essentially generative models for robotics, these new types of learning methods. You need to apply techniques to robotics that have been originally developed into other fields like LLMs, vision models, and so on.
Yeah.
And it's good if you don't have, I'll say, a certain type of very specific robotic education in like how you solve the problems. I think it's good that I basically came with the idea of how some problems are solved in deep learning outside of robotics and tried to make it fit into robotics. And that was very valuable. Obviously now it's changing, like robot learning now is exploding, like people are like even doing courses on this, but when I joined it wasn't the case at all. So I think it was like, I ended up doing robotics kind of randomly, and it was I think a very good thing. And I think essentially it's very valuable, I think, I mean, to kind of go into something that maybe is not mainly like I don't know, it's not mainly like usually doesn't have like too much competition in the AI space and so on. So I felt like I could actually do something that is valuable there as opposed to, I don't know, competing already with like the other 2000 LLM startups, essentially. Right.
Yeah. I think like pre-training models, for instance, like is very like a saturated market right now. But do you have any sort of tips for someone with like a CS background who would want to get into robotics? Like just read a bunch of papers, or is there more? I guess there's more resources now.
Yes. So I think you should basically, uh, you should unironically, you should like basically do a course on like ROS, like the basics of like ROS,
Yeah.
and then you buy one of these like low cost robot arms or something to do some experiments. There's like this startup, I forgot the name now, that does like these low cost robot arms.
It's like fast.
And I think, yeah, I think also possible. I don't know if there's also someone else, but yeah, basically, like
Yeah.
buy one of these robot arms, learn about some basic controls, like learn about ROS,
Yeah.
and then you should basically learn. I mean, you should already know about like LLMs and vision language models and so on, and like generative diffusion as well is very important, and
Yeah.
like how this job is done. And then there is a bunch of papers on like applying this stuff to robotics, like end-to-end robot learning. But honestly, there is not that much in depth, like theory-wise. It's just about like getting some experience in robotics and getting started with it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know, go to a hackathon or something, right? That's like
Go to a good back at them. That
exactly.
would be. Also about hiring, what sort of people do you look to hire for Mimic? Um, yeah,
I think so. That's very like rapidly changing and so on.
yeah,
Like, I think there is a lot of value in like just getting. I mean, essentially, you shouldn't like look at just like credentials and so on and like I don't know seniority what we're doing right now is like so new that there is not really anybody that has been doing this for like 5 years or something like that. The people
yeah,
who have been doing what we do for 5 years, they are like probably in physical intelligence and they are like raising absurd amounts of money, right? Like so it
yeah,
I think it's just good to just basically find people that are strong, that are like excited to do what we want to do, and like and make sure that they have kind of the right vision and that they fit in the vision, and that's basically what we're hiring. In terms of the actual role, I mean, I had like software engineer, like AI engineer, then also mechanical engineer. Electrical engineers, like it's kind of throughout everything, right? So
yeah,
we have been very eclectic in like how we hire and like how we find the people.
yeah,
Obviously, like being from ETH and also kind of being somewhat within our gang helps a lot because then we know you already. But like, I think overall, like if you kind of share the vision and if you're in robotics and you're really good, then it's a good fit, basically. But yeah, we are trying to get people who are really good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, one question also is like, what's like the work-life balance? Like, is it very startup-y, or you work like I don't know, like every day, or is
I
it?
think it's definitely very startup-y. Like I
Yeah,
personally don't believe in like I don't think you can like physically sustain, I don't know, 20 like I don't know 996, you know, like as in like
96.
I-
I'm doing the 96 or not. Like, is it
yeah,
doable?
I mean I guess it depends how old you are. Like
Yeah,
it depends, right? Like what type of job you have to do, what targets you have, whether there is like an end to that,
yeah.
right?
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
Like you need, so that's also what I'm saying, like people should be allowed to goof around, right? Like that's important because like you need to be able to wind down and think strategically about things long term. If you're always doing 996, it doesn't work. Obviously though, you cannot just like do nothing and leave all the time. And like I also don't think like if you are a startup that is under 50 people, I don't think it makes sense to do remote. Like you just need to be there. You need to be there. You need to work hard and you need to get the stuff done. And then you need to have time to actually think strategically and wind it down. Like, it's nothing
yeah,
about posturing. Like, there's no point in like, I don't know, exactly. If you're above a certain age, like just grinding yourself down completely. But yeah, it's very competitive. So obviously, there's like lots of work to be done. So,
I,
yeah.
I mean, I do think like, yeah, winding down is probably a good thing. Like, I spoke with a lot of people who also grinded a lot, but like winding down allows them to kind of like come up with ideas that kind of just process in like the background kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And also, I also think like it's also very biased towards being an individual contributor. Like you just have something to do X, then just get X done. If it's hard, just grind and get it done, right? And then you can rest.
yeah,
But like you have a million things going on and you're juggling stuff. You have to think strategically about what makes sense day to day.
yeah,
Then you are working long hours, but also your pace is not the same. Like it's like you're not like on the computer every single time. Like you
yeah.
I
Slow
think
down.
as the founder, like it doesn't make any sense anyways to think that like you're basically grinding all the time. Like it's just like a bit of a fiction, right? You basically have to think strategically all the time. Otherwise, if you are grinding on the computer 24/7, you probably should have hired somebody long ago to do some of these things. Then more work should pile up, and before you get to a point again, you should already try to delegate and create structures, basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for delegating actually? Like, I think because going from like a PhD to all of a sudden now, okay, I have to actually trust someone to do the work, right?
Yeah, I think that's very hard. I think it's important to have like a quick feedback loop somehow. Like
Yeah,
it's you. I think I'm always surprised. Like it's really hard to find people that are really good. Like it's really hard. I don't want to be like an asshole or anything, right? Like I'm just saying, this is just true no matter what you're doing. If you are good at something, you can be bad at something else, right? Like you can be good at something, bad at something else. Then if you want to find the people that are really good also at what you are good at, it's really hard somehow, right?
yeah,
And so you have to be really careful finding exactly like people that are good and having like you have to spend lots of time hiring, like find the right
yeah,
person. It takes forever, and it feels also frustrating because you're gonna end up throwing away a lot of work because then some people don't work out and so on, right? But
yeah,
so like I don't know, you're pursuing somebody and then they don't want to join or something like that, right? But like,
yeah,
uh, but if you don't do it, then it's just worse overall. So like I just think just get the best possible people that you can. So just invest the most time you can on the hiring part, basically, and then on delegating, it's basically just quickly finding the feedback loop of what a person is good at. Because if you forget stuff for too long, then you never know what comes out on the other side. Like either something is really good or it's just not, right? So
yeah,
I don't know. I'm still figuring it out. Like we are quite young as a startup, so like delegating is really hard if you're working. I think kind of in stuff that is new. Like there is no like I don't know. Like there are like human-made structures of management and work for many things, and then you can kind of like just read a book. But like if you're doing like deep tech or something like that, like I don't know, just wing it, just winging it. Have tight feedback loops so that you can actually create something, right, out of like a structure or something. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to mention or?
That I would want to mention. Oh man, I think. I mean, overall, like, I just think that if you want to do, I mean, it's a bit cliche, right? If you want to do a startup in AI and robotics, it's kind of like a good time for it, and
Yeah,
all of this. There is a good, like, it's a good time to do it, like, especially if you're in Europe, there is barely any competition,
yeah,
and you should never think, like, I don't know, the classic efficient market hypothesis fallacy.
yeah,
Like, oh, if it was so easy, somebody would have done it already. That's not true. Like,
yeah,
it's bullshit. Like, if you think that you have an insight into this, and I guess you'll know if you know what I'm talking about, you'll know,
yeah,
then most likely other people haven't figured it out. You should just do it, right?
yeah,
Like, it's easy to assume that because your entire life there were grown-ups, right? Then people have figured out stuff. It's not true. So just do what you need to do, and I think you don't have like lots of competition currently. At least, I mean, unless you're exactly in SF, where everybody's always doing the latest fads. But even there, like, I wouldn't overestimate SF compared to here as an ecosystem. Like, it's just like more competition to get talent and so on. But like in terms of ideas, like if you think you have a good idea and you don't immediately see in front of your eyes somebody doing exactly the same thing, then just go for it, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I think also like a lot of people just don't realize they can just do things as well, right? Like we're just like in this like, oh, you need to get a job, and like your manager tells you what to do, and like that's just how it is. So it's super cool to also share like the stories of people who are like building stuff, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah, and also like just in general, exactly. Do more things, more actions per minute. Like
yeah,
actually, it pays off to write emails at 80% efficiency in terms of the quality of the email. Just get it done, right? Like, rather than like wait and think about how to word this like that. Exactly. Like yeah. So just in general, exactly. Yeah, you can just do things. That's very valuable.
Hope you enjoyed episode number 2 of Ambitious X Driven. I wanted to give a shout out to Findful Campus. They sponsor the newsletter and podcast, and they run a VC academy for the top students from Swiss universities and invest in the hottest startups in Switzerland. You can go check them out at campus.findful.com, and yeah, stay tuned for more exciting podcasts. See ya.